One of the most underrated things I think in trading is setting up your week, looking back at the previous week. And I'm going to show you today exactly how I do that from the start to the end, using news events, using the Trello board. This is the Trello board that I have. I take every position, day, write up, everything goes in here from the start of the year. You can see my running total for the year. And really everything that encompasses my trading is in here. What I do is I've got a template here. Let's move this out of the way. I've got a template. So with a template, I can show you that this is how I set up every week. Every week's the same. I go through the same procedure. This is something you've got to do. I think the most underrated thing, and this is why I want to do this video, is so underrated. Being able to set up your week, have a plan, and if you're not following that plan on Wednesday or a Tuesday, why are you not following what you wrote up to start the week? We're going to start off with the most important. Reading from last week, did we learn anything? Some weeks I've got a weekly review and I learn stuff. And if I learn stuff, then clearly I need to be making note of that and not making the same error again going into the following week. But the template's there. We've got that. Once we've done that, I'm looking at the news events. I'm writing down any news event for the week with a news summary. I've already done this weekly's outlook, so we're going to go through that after, but I'm just going to show you the template of what I do. So if you want to do something similar, then it's worth doing. I'm almost acting as if I'm a beginner trader. I am a dummy. I'm writing down what happened day by day last week to give myself an idea of exactly how price moved at the end, an unbiased view. When you're in the week, you may see stuff that's not actually existing. This allows me to look at things from a third person view to an extent and looking at how can I go into next week from that price movement. As a result, I then mark up everything with a plan of exactly how I break down my week with markups. All that prediction summary at the end is how I'm going to navigate this upcoming week. What am I looking for? If I am setting higher time frames on a Monday morning, I'm going to write them in now so I can set them in and look at the market to start Monday and see how we've moved overnight in Asian. But this is my weekly outlook. I've already done it for this week, 9th to the 13th of June. I'm not even looking to trade this week by the looks of it from what I've written up. We're going to go through each thing step by step to not get overcomplicated. Starting off with the news events. So what I do is go into Forex Factory. I filter the upcoming week from Sunday to Friday. You can do Monday to Friday. And you can see here for the USD, pound and euro, the only assets I trade. I don't want to look at NZD news. I don't want to look at Canada news. I'm looking at this. I only look at red folder as well. That's all I really care about. We know the start of the week is going to be relatively slow. I do believe the best price movement happens in Wednesday and Thursday. That's where the news starts coming in a lot more. There's more news events during that period than at the start of the week. We've got bank holidays for Euro, so I've written that down. But really we're looking at CPI. So you can click on this yellow folder and what you can see is the previous prints. So I'm no expert in fundamentals. I don't really do excessive research on different events. But I do look at this and try and build a picture up. For example, we can see that the overall inflation this year has been coming out under forecasted. You can see here from the start of the year, for example, the yearly is the most important. And you can see that it's been dropping below 3%. Well, I know from a perspective of the UK and the US, we don't really like dropping below 2% on the inflation. This is also going to put pressure on the Fed to cut rates. And this is what Trump goes on about all the time. So if we keep seeing it drop, we start going below 2%, this is going to put pressure on the Fed. So all I've written in here to start the week is, CPI. We've been seeing negative prints, lower than expected, every time on the core CPI on the monthly. 0.3% has been the predicted. This is looking to an extent where the labour market glazing strong. The reason why I've said that is I think NFP figures are somewhat manipulated. The labour market's not as strong as NFP has come out as. This could put pressure on the Fed. Really, that's all I've got to say with that. I've said there, don't like dropping below 2%. We could be in a squeeze position to see an actual increase in the yearly CPI. At what point are we getting to these news events where they can't really get any worse? Because I am starting to see that from what I can gather from the news events. As an example, we can take a look at core PPI as well. We've had tariffs that have given core PPI a really bad print, minus 0.4. We can see that from here. If we look at core PPI and we saw minus 0.4, I can tell you now from what I went back to, 2010 was the last time we saw that bad of a print. So there's really unlikely chances that we're going to see a worse than 0.4 negative after the tariff news last month was way worse than it is now. We've not seen a positive higher than forecast in September 2024 though. So will we actually see a figure bigger than 0.3? Probably not. So we're going to see something in the range probably between 0 and 0.3. We're not going to see PPI come out relatively worse, are we? Same again for PPI monthly. Predict to go back into positive. We will likely see it above 0. So that's all I'm trying to gauge here is you can just tell overall the figures from the USD have got really bad. Can they get much worse? Probably not. As for unemployment claims here, I've said this is going to be a key indicator of the strength coming into the labour market, as we've seen 2 back-to-back negative prints above 240k. We're still predicted to come out roughly around that 240k. I don't think unemployment claims is the biggest news event, even though it's red folder. 250k and above is outside of the range between 200 and 250 that I like to see it within. If we get that, it's going to put more pressure on the labour market that the NFP figures for maybe next month might come out bad and we see a really bad print next month. But as for the minute, unemployment claims is still in that range, so I'm not too worried about it right now. Then we look at GDP on the pound. So we can go to that, and it's just about clicking on it, just having a look. Don't overcomplicate the situation. I don't have to be an expert on fundamentals to at least understand these things. Strong figures over the last 2 months. We've seen some very good prints. We're now expected to go back into negative. I've basically said that to an extent, as long as we see something around 0 and we don't drop too low, that's priced in, and we may see a little increase. But we know pound news does not move GU, for example, like the dollar news does. And then finally, we've got consumer sentiment here. 52.5 predicted, 52.2 previous. What I can gather from this is anything above 100 is strong consumer sentiment. Anything under isn't great. This is actually the second lowest period. The only time we had this was June 22. This looks to me then like we can't really come out below 50. I've never seen it come below 50. So are we really going to get a print that's worse than 50? Probably not. And you can see that from the figures here. If we go to them. We've been coming out bad again all year. 50.8. We've ended up being, 52.2. This to me, it can't get lower. So that's 3 news events with at least 2 of them on the US. Probably can't get that much worse. Therefore, maybe that dollar strength will start kicking in now. That's what we've got to be looking at. So what I've said here is we've got a big news day tomorrow because of the fact tariff talks with Xi and Trump. This making a deal and there being a deal confirmed, we'll see strength in the dollar, I believe. Depends what the deal is, but generally Trump will want to come out with something favourable here. But if Xi comes out with the better side of that deal, we're going to see currently low get taken out and DXY. I'm going to continue down on the dollar. So much to watch out for. There's a lot of info to see if the Fed is put under more pressure to cut rates. Due to data being so bad over the first 5 months, we could have hit a ceiling of how bad the prints can go. Start to see some pressure taken off coming into the end of Q2, coming into the summer months. So that is the news deal. So really there, from all the news events, there only being 4 or 5. I've built up a picture of what I'm expecting. Throughout the week, if the prints come out against what I think, we can see how it moves the market, and then that gives you more idea of where price may be heading. And I like doing this. It's just a really nice way to start the week and just have a look out for, before you do your breakdown, what is going on in the bigger picture, in the economic scenario, in the world economy, what is happening? Where are the pushes and the pulls between different players in the market as we coming to the weekly? So all I'm doing here is going to the weekly and the daily. I'm going to talk about what happened. Really, what we saw on EU, and this is what I've written in, we saw Monday push up, take out previous weekly high. We then saw a pullback with another higher low formed. We then came up, come into this liquidity on Thursday, failed to take it out after we previously here faked out. So we know this is a key area of rejection. Friday then continued down, potentially engulf, well it did engulf, and it's potentially left an order block here. So it's a very important close there on Friday. So I've said really, this is what we've seen. We tapped into 50% of EU's unmitigated wick as well from this wick high. That was around here, and we've rejected off that. We're still closing inside the wick and breaking this resistance level. So there's, again, uncertainty around where this is going. But if we were going to go up, and this was a strong pullback, leaving this area here, we should be trying to come up to the highs, and it is looking very weak at the minute. So that's what I've said. The weekly candle closed bullish, 50 pip candle, engulfed previous body, not closing above previous weekly high. It did engulf that resistance to the left. The wick was double the size of the body. That's something to take note of. As for GU, similar. Monday gap down. We can see that we gap down. We filled the gap. We then come and took out previous weekly high. We then failed to break this daily high after this pullback. So that's massive. And what you want to look at here is this year so far, when have we done that? Where we've had a strong pullback on the daily and then failed to clear previous highs and rejected them. Nowhere. So you can see that this could be a start of a sign of potential trend change. Now, I'm not calling the sells yet. I'm not saying that. But you need to look at what price action is doing. You don't need indicators. You don't need all this stuff. You just need to mark in and just look at the daily candles. And you can see from here, from the very lows, we can see that this was the first push up, but we never broke this high. When we confirm bullish structure here, higher highs, higher lows, pullback, sweeping the overall lows of supported areas. We can see again, we've higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, pullback, cleared this liquidity, took out higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, pullback, took out this liquidity, higher highs, higher lows, failures at the high. First time this year. That is important. So I've written this in as well. This is what we did all week. Wednesday closed, engulfed. Thursday tested the highs, failed to break with a candle body, closing week bullish. Friday continued down, breaking previous daily low and closing with an engulfing candle body, looking like an order block is forming. We're still respecting bullish structure. Higher highs and higher lows on EU and GU are still forming. The weekly closed bullish. It closed decent. It had a 73 pip body. We can see here. We had a 73 pip body. Still a failure to engulf previous weekly high body. Has a large wick to the upside of 91 pips. Still in a weekly order book to the left. This is the third time we have failed in this area. So we've seen this area here. Not that I look too much at POIs. I'm more looking at liquidity. But I know this order block's key. Because look what we're doing here. So we're closing outside of it. We've had 2 taps in now. We've tapped 50% of it as well. Are we now going to get a pullback? I'm still bullish. I'm still eyeing up really what we're doing over here. But that was the previous week. Already, just from that, how much better of an understanding do you have looking at the market after it's closed, when it's not moving, when you're not emotional? I can't vouch how much this makes a difference, man. This makes so much difference. If you just write it down or you do a video and you journal, like this is only part of my edge, writing things down. But I can't explain, journaling everything, how much of a difference this will make to your trading. If you're at a break-even stage in your trading, this will make you profitable. I guarantee, I can't even stress that enough. Then I come in to prediction summary. But really, as I said before in the template, what I now do is follow the market prep and mark up. So what I do on EU, and I've already marked up the charts for this week, is what do I look at the weekly and go, first of all, is it a weekly confirmation? Well, we've got enough here saying that this is double the size of the body, the wick. Therefore, with a tap into this liquidity that we failed at already, I'm not determining that this is a bullish weekly confirmation. Therefore, I'm not setting higher time frame positions. Now, I'm marking up previous weekly high, previous weekly low, just to see last week's range. I've got the current yearly high up here that we may or may not revisit. I've then looked on the weekly and gone, right, this here, I would have this previously marked in. Why have I now took this off? Because if we start to see a weekly bearish candle in here, we have no POIs in the way for us to come down and take out this as a clear liquidity point. I said it in my breakdown last week. At the start of the week, we could come and take this out. Therefore, this now becomes invalidated. We should have, after tapping this and retesting it, go up to the high. If we're not, then this is a weekly invalid POI. Take that off. Don't overcomplicate your charts. Keep it simple. Therefore, I'm now looking on the daily. And what I'm eyeing up here is, for me to want to sell, first of all, I'd want to see a breaker structure and a change of structure, lower lows and a lower high. I'm eyeing up this daily as potential inducement to come back up. For me though, for me to want to sell, simply my strategy now is that simple. I need to see a bearish weekly close. If so, that's the target and I would be bearish to that level. Easy as that. I'm not going to sell yet. I'm waiting. I'm a higher time frame trader. I can't trade the daily until I see a weekly confirm with a lower high and a low to test. Because all we could do here is, because we're still forming high highs and high lows, if we get a sharp pullback, clear this and get strong confirms, we could come up to current yearly high. So for me, I'm looking at that and going, right, this week, what is going on. And if what is going on and what I deem to be happening now is not setting up how I want, I'm not going to trade it. The next question is, do I have any running positions? Well, I had two. I have two positions running. One at break even, I've took them off. One at break even and one entry from here on the 20th. What I've determined is I've looked back through my data at times where we've played it into weekly liquidity, had weekly pullbacks, and then had a candle come in to this area. At no times in my data has this now played out to the high. So I now know I'm not really bullish anymore. As a result, I've written here. If we go to EU, I've actually written down here, weekly predictions, closing trades running from last week. Checked all data from 2022 onwards to see if there's a weak close liquidity after pullback on the weekly time frame. 2 out of 2 ended up reversing, that's meant to say, and not winning. Therefore, closing out trades from 20th of May and the 3rd of June in small profit. This determined we are now not expecting current yearly high to break without a bigger pullback. Like I said, this bigger pullback could be to this area, but it could be to this daily. So therefore, at the minute, I'm going to sit out, close my buys, and wait to see what I want to see for a sell. If the buys play out, I will look back and say, okay, where could I have got in buys? I still may get an opportunity for buys if we hold the structure, but what I can definitely see here is we're looking slow on the upside. This looks like a good target, and if you're lower time frame, selling in this period could be good, but I don't want to be playing that. I want to take the higher probability setups once we confirm bearish rather than try and call the top. Like I said, I've been doing that too much this year, so I'm just going to sit out. And that's the beauty of what I've done. If I close these out and I make 1.5, 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever it is on Monday morning, that's my profit. That's from that scenario, that's my profit. Then I wait for the next scenario to play out. When you're in a potential trend change, this is where most of your losses will come from because you're trying to be calling the sell too quick. You may want to short here, it could do that and then do that. Or you're trying to buy still and you're too late to the party when you should have been buying in here. You could have had targets around here. Like I've said now, going to be getting out around here because I just don't think the probabilities are there for this to play out right now. Not based on an emotional state. Like I said last week, I kept my EU trades running. I've made a judgment on this weekend based on the price action, based on the overall market conditions that I don't now think this has an edge. So I'm taking this off. And that may save me a few losses. And if this plays out and it wins, then I'm still happy with my decision making because my data backed does not show me that this will likely play out now. And you can see there, that's all my thought process. If I'm wrong, I can look back through that and go, why was that? Why did EU go up next week? Weekly on EU has not given us any bullish confirms per higher time frame. Daily is looking like it could be in the start of a trend change. Firstly, we need to see a lower low form to break structure. Then a lower high could confirm we can tap into 112 liquidity on the daily. We're not playing this daily move as the weekly has not confirmed we are bearish yet. So I'm not playing that move, but I know that's a probability to watch it and see if it plays out. Overall, watch price, see if we're going to get a weekly confirm for downside going into the following week. Now I'm already planning the following week. I'm already thinking ahead. I'm already setting up an idea, watching to see if this idea plays out. Then I can look for moves to the weekly liquidity for further downside. The trend change is looking more likely as POIs on the weekly behind us soint, that's meant to say don't exist. What I mean by this is, like I said, because we did this imbalance fill at this point, there is no weekly order book fair value gap for price to then do this and then do this before taking this. So you can see there that I may miss the whole move. In fact, if we do this and we do this really quickly and we have no good entry in this whole area, I might miss the move. But I don't care because sometimes I'll be too late to the party in the scenario. But sometimes if it holds off, we may catch a move in here to get into that level. So I'm already setting up plays in the following week now. That's the important thing, is I'm already knowing this week's a less probability of playing out. Therefore, waiting to see what I want to see, then I execute. That's the difference. As we go on to GU, what is my prediction? So I've just caught 3 winners on GU. So why do I need to trade this? When we've already took out this high, we've already failed for the first time, but we're still so bullish, I'm not calling a sell just yet. I'm really eyeing up what we're doing at this low because now this, to me, is an inducement. We need to come and take this out. We do not have lower lows, lower highs. Price may just take this Then I'm looking into this area. So I've written for GU, this weekly this weekly fair value gap area is so important. That's meant to say GU. Weekly on GU is not giving us any bullish confirms. Why are we not getting bullish confirms despite closing bullish? Well, we have not engulfed the previous weekly and we're at a high point. Therefore, for me, there's not enough to give this higher time frame go. I'm not confident in that enough. We're still not creating any POIs on the daily for upside. It's very choppy. That's another reason. But at the bottom here, I've said daily liquidity looks a good area, sitting below previous weekly low. Weekly fair value gap behind us. It is the first time this year we have failed from a higher high after nearly 200 pip pullback into a strong order block fair value gap area. So this is the area that I took my higher time frame buy from, this order block fair value gap that I caught the win out of. We, as a key area of that, we should be making a further high. If not, that's the inducement and we're going to come down. So I've caught my buys. I'm waiting for sells to prove to me that we're bearish, which hasn't yet. So I've said here, options to moves to be played after taking out daily liquidity. This is for buys, around 1.34. We'll weigh up how this looks on the day, because I'm not sure if we get a pullback into this weekly and an engulfing, strong engulfing candle, if we're actually confirming that we're going to come and take out this high and tap this liquidity. Because on GU, to be honest, I'm a lot more bullish on GU than EU at the minute. We are not showing enough signs yet on GU that we're coming down. Overall, we need to see how the weekly closes in regards to the weekly fair value gap behind us, but it's more than not looking like a no trade week. That's it. That's my weekly analysis done. This takes me about an hour and 15, between an hour and an hour and a half to write up every week. And this just sets stead for the rest of the week. This is it. And there you go. If you need to copy this, you've got everything here from the template, how you want to write up, where you go to understand the news and the fundamentals, and then how I break down my charts going from the previous week and then into the following week with everything that I saw from the previous week. If you do this, even though it's a long process, I guarantee you will start to see more results in your trading. At any point, you can go back through your days that you took trades, and like I've got here, I've got the trades that we marked in. They're the winners. And look, we're setting up for the day here, just writing up about what happened yesterday, and that's just what I do. It's just a simple way of gathering everything, and got the total running for the year. I think this is just a great opportunity for you guys. If you're not already journaling like this, get on it. This will make a difference. If you do this for 3 months, there's no way you'll get worse as a trader. No way. I'm telling you now. So yeah, make the most of this and give it a go. See if this works for you. You will have better weeks and you won't be as nervous going into the week. When you come on a Monday and you've been out on the weekend drinking and you go, oh, this is my weekly markup. Where's that coming from? It's coming from nothing. Coming from the previous week, make the most of what you're learning week by week and implement it into the next week. But these are the basic things that will separate you from being good or not being good. Simply it. Start doing the things that you don't want to do that are difficult, like this. Learn to love it. Learn to enjoy the mundane and boring stuff. Money isn't made in the markets by looking at the charts. Money is made in the grueling testing, data, journaling that is happening on day by day and week by week. This is where the edge is crafted and perfected and turned on its head. And this is where you maximise your winners and you cut your losses early and you work out your position in the market. So I hope this helped. Let's go into next week and let's do well. Take care, guys. See you later. Peace out.